Skinamarink is a Canadian experimental horror film directed by Kyle Edward Ball in his feature debut, and tells the story of two children, Kaylee and Kevin, who wake up in their parents' home to find their parents are missing and walls, doors and other objects in their house are disappearing. This is a really, really difficult film to review, and we'll obviously talk it through because this one is all about personal preference, what kind of things you're into, and it's not necessarily a film that I would say is bad, because I think that's kind of unfair in terms of it's experimental, it's doing something completely different, and it's something that really you're either going to love or hate. Personally, it wasn't for me. I didn't hate it, and actually I see a lot of merit in it, and there's a lot of sort of good ideas, and there's stuff that I will probably take with me from this. But yeah, it's a really, really difficult one to kind of discuss. I really like a sort of challenging movie, and I do kind of like not necessarily always being led. I kind of like to kind of figure out what my own interpretation of that can be. And I also really like a very satisfying, very conventional horror where everything is spelled out. I know exactly what's going on. So Skinamarink is very, very, as I say, very experimental in that way, that there is no real plot. And I had to look at the film after I'd finished watching it, look at Wikipedia and actually understand what I'd been seeing. And it turns out what I'd been seeing turned out to be what I thought it was, which is a kind of random collection of very, very vague plot development with these two kids. I think the film was so sort of fuzzily made that you can't really see through the static. And it made it therefore quite hard to bring your own interpretation to it, because it was just really hard to understand what was going on. And it really does ask a lot of viewers. And I think some people really love that. For me, it had a limited shelf life. I think this film did. And for something of this nature, this film was 1 hour, 40 minutes. I just thought that was incredibly long for what it was. And it's a shame in a way, because I think it could have been not even half of that. It could have been a 20 or 30 minute film. And actually, it probably would have stuck with me and left an impression. And it's almost the sort of thing I would expect to have seen in some sort of art gallery where you walk in and it's darkly lit and you just have the flickering of the screen. And I imagine that would have been quite alluring as a viewing experience. You could have really kind of got sucked into it. I made sure that I turned all the lights off because I knew how this film was going to play out. And I just put my phone to one side and I wasn't distracted. But even with that setup, I just found this went on a bit too long. And by the end, I really was willing it to end. So I'm going to keep this one quite short. This is one of those films I wanted to see and I wanted to review, because I know it's going to be one of the kind of more experimental horrors we're going to see this year. Does that mean I found it enjoyable? No, I would not go back to this. I just wouldn't want to watch it again. It was just way too slow for me. Would I say it's a bad film? It's kind of hard to judge. This is more like an art piece. This is more like saying it's trying to judge a painting or a piece of music. I think the film medium is just so much. We're used to it being so much more structured that when something along like this comes along, I don't know. This isn't a film for me. It's more of a sensory experience. Unfortunately, just not one that I loved. And there are, I'd say, a couple of moments in it. There's the look under the bed scene, which if you see the film, I think that worked really well. That was very, very tense. You are wondering what's going to come next. And then the final shot, again, I won't give too much away. That kind of gave me a little bit of a chill. But ultimately, yeah, it's not for me. But I will not say this is a badly made film, because I think you've got to kind of look at it in the spirit that it is. So that said, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. And that's a 5 predominantly for the experimental nature of it, the kind of the balls to go ahead and do something like this. This film cost $15,000 to make, and it's made a couple of million at cinema. So, like, good on the director. I think, like, sterling effort. The 5 isn't it's not supposed to be a reflection of it being a bad movie. It's more for the originality, and just going for something. Ultimately, does that make for a fun or enjoyable viewing experience? Personally, no. For me, I wasn't scared by it. I think there were a couple of jump scares which I think were supposed to do more, and ultimately I found this quite unsatisfying. But is it weird to say that I'm kind of glad it exists, and that the nature of streaming allows us to get films like this out to the mainstream, and have that bit of creativity that we haven't seen before. This film is very creative. You will probably take some of the visuals and the imagery away with you, but as I keep coming back to, would I want to watch this again? Absolutely not. This is a one and done for me, and I will never go back to it. And it really is, if you like this kind of thing, cool, go and enjoy it. It's the sort of thing you could stick this on at a Halloween party in the background, or you could put it on in kind of a context where it's creating a mood, it's creating background noise. But to actually sit down and watch it, that was quite a painful hour and 40 minutes. And yeah, 30 minutes would have been better. So Skinamarink is available on Shudder, and go and watch it now. It's not for me, but as I said, it's not a bad one. It's just not my kind of thing.